So yeah, James Dean is my grandfather, but I did not just come down from Mount Olympus to tell you this story. Um, Today, let's talk about the difference between me and Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage and I. Now, Nicolas, he got into acting because his uncle was some famous producer or director or something. I forget their name, but Nicholas decided he was going to change his name because on the set of one of his first movies, they were saying, "Oh, you're just here because of your, family connection." So he goes and changes his name to that of a superhero, Cage or something like that. So, um, so he wants everyone to believe that he did it all by himself. There was no help. And pretty much that's what's happened. He's fooled the world into believing that he got his acting start due to his natural ability. But in actuality, the reason why he has become a successful actor is his family connection. And he's been trying to hide that, or that was his goal. He didn't want people to think he was there because of favoritism. Now, that's the difference between him and I is um, I'm not using James Dean's grandson to get a job. I'm just telling you he's my grandfather. And because you did not know this, uh, you didn't know he had a kid, you didn't know he had a grandson. That in itself is an interesting story. I mean, I guess if you're a James Dean fan, maybe not if you just don't care. Um, but there is do you see the difference? He's trying to hide it, and I'm trying to show it to you. And many of the actors in Hollywood, the big names, their mommy and daddy were actors or had, but that's pretty much the way the world works. You can't even get a job at the donut shop without being friends or, know the people who run it or own it or whatever. That's, pretty much every industry is like that. Um, so I don't begrudge him or I'm not going to knock his acting ability or any of the movies he's been in. I mean, he seems like a, okay person, I suppose. I know. But because of, the situation that happened with James Dean is um, his accident was not an accident. His the cover up of his child when he was a teenager was intentional. They know about it. And if you think about it, any other relative that I've contacted through DNA has come back with, "Oh, wow, any more information you can give me about how we are related?" And um, since James Dean is a famous person, um, the people with his estate, the Warner Corporation, they don't want to engage with me because that jeopardizes their money situation. There won't be, they feel like there's going to be some contested court thing where they lose control of what they got, which isn't really theirs in the first place because James Dean being illegally adopted and a victim of human trafficking means that his actual biological relatives are entitled to his estate, not the people who um, were participants of an illegal adoption, which Winton was. Um, so there's been a lot of cover-ups in Hollywood. There's a new book about the woman who starred in Rebel Without a Cause. Is it Laura Wood? Last name Wood, but she died in 1981. Her body was found washed up on Catalina Island, and there's a new book out that disputes the official findings, and the author, went through all of the official documents, did interviews with everyone, and he found that it was a cover-up. The woman had bruises on her arms and legs and scratches on her legs, like there was some kind of a struggle. And Christopher Walken was on the boat, as well as her husband and someone else. So I haven't read the book, but I gather that what he's doing is he's trying to demand justice for Mrs. Wood. But, it's kind of an uphill battle because the official rulings and, police reports and everything, even though they do itemize the bruising and, what they found was it was unintentional, or she slipped and fell. So the author believes, or his evidence suggests, that it wasn't an accident, and that's pretty much the same thing with James Dean. The evidence suggests it was not an accident, and there was motive, and the evidence supports that. But Laura Wood and James Dean, having starred in Rebel Without a Cause together, it's just kind of a strange coincidence that a lot of people surrounding James Dean have been mysteriously killed under kind of weird circumstances. Gig Young, Rolf Witherwich, what's the other one I'm thinking of? Well, a lot of them that spoke up, or maybe were likely to speak up, ended up dying in kind of unusual circumstances. But back to Laura Wood is, there's a lot of corruption with anything involving money. And if you think about police corruption nowadays, it's harder to get away with. But back then, there wasn't all this digital banking, and you couldn't really track the money down or follow the money as easily. So there was probably a lot more corruption back then. I mean, if you think about the mafia and organized crime, it was a lot more prevalent back then. I mean, maybe it's just as prevalent now, but just not as visible. So there's a lot to account for. It's a lot easier for someone to respond to questions about a situation because there's a clear, concise meaning or answer to a question. When it's just me talking off the top of my head, it's a little bit harder because I have to come up with things that connect to the story off the top of my head. But my main thing was not just that Laura Wood died under mysterious circumstances, but there's a lot of um, subterranean things that go on, especially in Hollywood, that um, we don't know about. Like all the people in Hollywood that get these great jobs or star in films, they're connected to the industry through family and friends. But pretty much anyone can do it. So the difference between Nicolas Cage and I is, he wants to hide the fact that he has a family connection and that's why he got hired. It wasn't because he's uh, any better than the next person. But I want you to know James Dean is my grandfather so that you will want to encourage, someone in Hollywood to get me a job because you should be interested in seeing James Dean's grandson on film. I mean, you go on their little James Dean website or their Facebook page or whatever, there, hundreds of comments about how he was the greatest actor and what a beautiful man he was and all this stuff. Well, I'm not saying I'm a beautiful man or that I'm a great actor or anything, but um, you could make the conclusion that because no one knew James Dean had a kid, that would bring people to the theater, which is, as they say, bankable. Like it's guaranteed that people will want to see a Tom Cruise movie or one of these people that, already has a big name. But